being born from clouds of dust and gas. It is 1,300 light-years away. The light we see tonight left the nebula before the fall of Rome. It has been traveling while empires rose and crumbled, while maps were drawn and redrawn, while humanity spread across the globe. All that history passed in the Welcome to the Sleepy Academy. You have arrived at a sanctuary designed for rest, a quiet corner of the world where the noise of the day simply fades away. Here, we believe that true relaxation comes from the gentle rhythm of words and the soothing cadence of a narrative told without haste. Before we drift into tonight's journey, if you find comfort in this space we have created, please consider gently pressing the like button. It helps other weary souls find their way to us. And if you wish to return here for future nights of deep rest, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Now, take a moment to make yourself comfortable. Adjust your pillows, let your shoulders drop, and allow your breathing to slow down. Close your eyes, clear your mind, and let us begin. The architecture of distance. In the vast, silent stretches of the night sky, where the darkness seems to go on forever, there exists a measurement that defies our ordinary understanding of the world. It is a concept born from necessity, arising when the tools we use to measure our daily lives simply cease to function. We call this measurement the light year. On the surface, the phrase sounds familiar. It is composed of two words that we use every day. We know what light is. We see it filter through the curtains in the morning. We watch it cast shadows across the floor in the afternoon. We rely on it to navigate our rooms when the sun goes down. And we know what a year is. We feel it pass in the changing of the seasons, in the slow growth of trees, in the turning of calendars. These are comfortable words. They are human words. But when they are combined into the single unit of astronomy, they create something that sits strangely in the mind. A light year sounds like a measure of time. It has the word year right there at the end, suggesting a duration, a period of waiting, a long stretch of hours and days. But it is not a measure of time. It is a measure of distance. It is a phrase that carries more physical space than the human mind was ever designed to hold. It is the distance that light, moving at its unwavering cosmic speed, can travel in a single year of uninterrupted motion. To understand what this really means, and to understand why we need such a strange unit, we must first look at how we understand distance itself. We must look at the ground beneath our feet and the way we move through the world. Distance for us has always been physical. It is tactile. It is something we feel in our bodies. For thousands of years, to know a distance was to know the effort required to cross it. A short distance was a few steps across a room. It was the time it took to walk from the hearth to the door. A medium distance was a walk to a neighbor's house, or perhaps a journey to the nearest river. These distances were measured in strides, in the rhythm of breath, in the tiredness of legs. If a place was far away, it meant that you had to pack food. It meant that you had to wait for the weather to clear. Distance was an obstacle. It was something that resisted us. It was tied inextricably to the speed at which a human being could walk. Even as we began to build tools to help us move, our sense of distance remained anchored to the earth. We built ships to cross oceans, and we measured the journey in days and weeks. We watched the coastline fade and waited for a new coastline to appear. The ocean was vast, certainly, but it was still a surface. It was still something that could be traversed. Later, we built trains that cut through the landscape, blurring the trees and fields, compressing the time it took to travel between cities. Then came cars, and eventually airplanes, which shrank continents into a matter of hours. But through all of this, distance remained something we could conquer. It was a problem to be solved with speed. If a place was far away, we simply moved faster. We built better engines. We paved straighter roads. We defined distance by how long it took us to get there. But space is different. Space does not cooperate with our instinct to conquer it. When we look up at the night sky, we are looking at a realm where our traditional understanding of movement begins to fail. Beyond the atmosphere of our planet, the familiar units of kilometers and miles begin to stretch thin. They are designed for roads and maps, for borders and bridges. They are not designed for the void. As we move away from the Earth, past the orbit of the Moon and out towards the planets, the numbers we use to describe distance start to become unmanageable. They grow so
Somebody
large
please
that they
help
lose
me.
their meaning. We can write them down.
Forgive me.
We can say that a planet is billions of kilometers away. We can say that a star is trillions of kilometers away. The mathematics are precise. The numbers are correct. But the human mind cannot truly hold them. When we hear a number like 1 trillion,
Somebody please
we might
help
nod
me.
politely. We might acknowledge that it is
Forgive
very
me.
big, but we do not feel it. It becomes abstract. It becomes just a string of zeros on a page, conveying precision but not understanding. The mind blurs. The imagination retreats. This is where the light
Somebody
year becomes
please help me.
essential. It emerged not as a poetic
Forgive me.
invention to make the universe sound romantic, but as a practical necessity to keep astronomers sane. It was a way to describe the separation between stars without drowning in digits. It was a way to take the unimaginable scale of the cosmos and fold it into a unit that we could speak aloud without stumbling. To approach the idea of the light year, we must slow down. We must let go of the need for speed and the need for arrival. Tonight, we are not racing across the galaxy. We are drifting. We are allowing the concept of distance to unfold at its own pace, layer by layer, until we can sense the quiet vastness that lies between the stars. We begin with the familiar. We begin with the limitations of our own intuition. It is important to remember that human intuition was formed in a very narrow range of experience. Our ancestors did not need to understand the scale of the universe to survive. They needed to know how far a predator was. They needed to know if a shelter was close enough to reach before nightfall. They needed to know if a fruit tree was within a manageable radius for gathering. Our brains evolved to handle distances that mattered to our survival. We became experts at judging depth within a few hundred meters. We learned to lead hawks would take. We learned to read the terrain. But evolution gave us no tools for emptiness. It gave us no reason to prepare for a void stretching millions of times farther than the horizon. When we try to visualize the distance to a star, we are using a mind that was built to visualize the distance to a watering hole. It is a mismatch of machinery. It is like trying to measure the depth of the ocean using a wooden ruler. It is not that the ruler is wrong. It is simply that the ocean is operating on a completely different scale. This is why space feels so strange to us. It is not just big, it is fundamentally disconnected from effort. On Earth, if you walk long enough, you will eventually get somewhere. You will see the landscape change. You will pass landmarks. You will feel the progress in your muscles. In space, you can travel for 1,000,000 kilometers and see nothing change at all. The stars will look exactly the same. The darkness will look exactly the same. There is no wind to feel against your skin. There is no road passing beneath your feet. There is only the sensation of floating, of drifting through a silence that has no edges. This absence of landmarks strips distance of its texture. It becomes smooth. It becomes silent. It becomes difficult to sense. 3. This is the environment where the light year lives. It is a unit of measurement for a place where walking is impossible and where driving would take eternity. To understand it, we have to look at the fastest thing we know. We have to look at light itself. Light is so familiar to us that it almost disappears into the background of our lives. It fills our rooms when we wake up. It reflects off the surfaces of our tables and chairs. It delivers the colors of the world to our eyes. It seems instantaneous. When you flip a switch, the lamp turns on immediately. When you open your eyes, the world is just there, waiting for you. It does not feel like light is traveling. It feels like light is simply present. But light is not static. It is a traveler. It is a stream of energy moving through space at a specific, finite speed. It is not infinite. It does not happen everywhere at once. It flows. It ripples outward from its source like a wave moving across a pond, only much, much faster. Physicists discovered long ago that light travels at a speed that is woven into the fabric of the universe itself. It moves at approximately 300,000 kilometers every single second. Even that number is hard to visualize. 300,000 kilometers in 1 second. To put that into perspective, in the time it takes for your heart to beat once, light could circle the entire Earth 7 times. It is a speed that defies our instincts. It is so fast that for all practical purposes on Earth, it might as well be instant. But space is so vast that even this incredible speed begins to look slow. And this is the key to understanding the light year. It is the realization that the universe is so large that even light needs time to cross it. When we leave the surface of the Earth, the delays begin to appear. The moon, our closest companion in the night sky, is close enough that we can see the craters on its surface with a pair of binoculars. It looks like it is just right there, hanging just above the trees. But the moon is roughly 384,000 kilometers away. It is a distance that light, moving at its unimaginable speed, takes just over 1 second to cross. If you were standing on the moon and you flashed a light toward Earth, a person watching from their garden would not see it instantly. They would have to wait 1 second. It is a tiny pause, a heartbeat, a blink, but it is there. It is the first hint that distance is transforming into time. As we move further out, the pause grows longer. The sun, the source of all our warmth and daylight, sits about 150 million kilometers away. That distance is enormous, but in the language of light, it is measured in minutes. It takes sunlight about 8 minutes and 20 seconds to travel from the surface of the sun to the surface of the Earth.
4. This means that the light warming your skin on a summer afternoon is not fresh. It is 8 minutes old. It has been traveling through the cold vacuum of space while you were making breakfast, or while you were reading a book, or while you were simply sitting still. It began its journey, and it crossed the void, and it arrived 8 minutes later. If the sun were to suddenly vanish, we would not know it for 8 minutes. We would still see it shining in the sky. We would still feel its gravity holding us in orbit. We would be living in the past, blissfully unaware that the source of our light was gone, until the last stream of photons finally arrived and the sky went dark. This delay is the foundation of the light year. It teaches us that looking out into space is really looking back in time. It teaches us that distance is not just a gap between two objects, it is a lag in information. It is a waiting period. And as we move beyond the sun, past the orbits of Mars and Jupiter and Saturn, the waiting period stretches from minutes into hours. By the time we reach the edge of our own solar system, light takes hours to reach us. But even here, we have not yet reached the scale of a light year. We are still in the local neighborhood. We are still standing on the front porch of the cosmos. To reach the scale where light years become necessary, we must leave the solar system behind. We must cross the deep, empty ocean that separates our star from the next nearest star. This is where the true nature of emptiness reveals itself. The distance between stars is so great that kilometers become utterly useless. Describing the distance to the nearest star in kilometers would be like measuring the distance around the equator in millimeters. You could do it mathematically, you could write down the number, but it would be a number so long, so cluttered with zeros that it would convey nothing but confusion. And so, astronomers use the light year. They ask, if light travels at 300,000 kilometers per second and it never stops and it never slows down, how far would it get if you let it run for an entire year? The answer is a distance of about 9.5 trillion kilometers. That is one light year. It is a distance that is impossible to visualize. Our brains simply shut down when we try to picture a trillion of anything. But we don't need to picture the kilometers. That is the beauty of the unit. We only need to picture the time. We only need to imagine a beam of light moving silently, steadily through the dark for one full year. Think of the patience in that movement. Think of a year in your own life. Think of all the things that happen in 12 months, the changing of seasons from winter to spring, to summer to autumn and back to winter again. Birthdays, holidays, projects started and finished, relationships changing, books read, meals eaten, nights of sleep. A year is a long time for a human being. It is a significant portion of our experience. Now imagine that for that entire time, through every minute of every day of that year, a beam of light has been rushing through space. It has not stopped to rest. It has not slowed down for traffic. It has moved at the absolute cosmic speed limit, covering 300,000 kilometers with every tick of the clock. And at the end of that year, the distance it has covered is one light year. That is the measuring stick we use for the universe. It is a ruler made of time and speed. And the most humbling part of this concept is that the nearest star to us, a faint red star called Proxima Centauri, is not one light year away. It is more than 4 light years away. The light we see from that star tonight left its surface 4 years ago. It has been traveling through the emptiness while we lived 4 years of our lives. It is a message that has been in transit since the recent past, carrying the image of a star across a gap so wide that physical travel is almost inconceivable. This is why the light year is such a quiet, relaxing concept. It forces us to accept that we cannot rush. The universe is built on scales that demand patience. It is built on distances that make our fastest jets and rockets look like they are standing still. If we were to get into a car and drive at highway speeds, roughly 100 kilometers per hour, and we tried to drive 1 light year, we would have to keep driving for more than 10 million years. The human species has not even existed for 10 million years. We would have to drive through the rise and fall of civilizations, through the shifting of continents, through the evolving of the planet, just to cover the distance that light covers in 1 single year. This comparison helps us let go of the idea of conquering space. It helps us settle into the idea of witnessing it. We are not travelers on these scales. We are observers. We are watchers. We are sitting on a small, quiet rock, looking out into a vast, dark ocean and catching the waves of light that wash up on our shores. And each wave tells us how far it has traveled by how long it took to arrive. The light year tells us that the universe is deep. It tells us that the universe is old.
It tells us that everything we see is a memory. In the chapters to come, we will drift further out. We will move beyond the nearest stars, out to the edges of the galaxy, and then into the profound emptiness between the galaxies themselves. We will see how this single unit, the light year, stretches to accommodate the mind-bending size of the cosmos. We will explore what it means to look millions of years into the past. We will find comfort in the fact that we are small and that the universe is large, and that there is a slow, steady rhythm to the way information moves through the dark. But for now, we simply acknowledge the first step. We acknowledge that distance is not just space. Distance is time, and the light year is the bridge that connects them. 6. The training ground of seconds and minutes. Before we can truly understand the vast, silent ocean of the light year, we must first learn to swim in the shallower waters of our own home. We must understand the local neighborhood. In astronomy, local is a relative term. To a human being, local means the street outside the window or the town down the road. To the universe, local means the solar system. It means the family of planets, moons, asteroids, and comets that circle our sun. Even here, in this relatively small pocket of space, the distances are already growing beyond what our minds can comfortably grasp in kilometers. We are used to seeing the solar system in diagrams in school textbooks. In those pictures, the planets are lined up neatly in a row. They look like colorful marbles sitting on a table, close enough to touch one another. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, they seem crowded. But those diagrams are lies of necessity. They have to squeeze everything onto a single page, so they remove the one thing that defines space more than anything else: the emptiness. If we were to draw the solar system to scale and we made the Earth the size of a peppercorn, the Sun would be a ball of gas roughly the size of a bowling ball, and it would be 26 meters away. Jupiter would be a chestnut more than 100 meters away. Pluto would be a grain of sand located a full kilometer away. And in between these tiny specks of matter, there would be nothing but empty, silent air. This is why we need light to measure even our own backyard. We need a ruler that can span the silence. And so we begin to measure not in years, but in seconds and minutes. This is the training ground. This is where we learn that looking at the sky is an act of waiting. Let us start with the closest world to our own, the moon. It hangs in the night sky, large and luminous, covered in the gray scars of ancient impacts. It feels like a companion. It controls our tides. It lights our paths. It watches over us while we sleep. It feels near. And in cosmic terms, it is. But even this nearest neighbor is separated from us by a chasm of emptiness that defies easy travel. The Apollo astronauts, strapped into the most powerful rockets ever built by human hands, took 3 days to cross that gap. 3 days of drifting through the blackness. 3 days of silence. But light is faster. Light does not drift, it rushes. When we look at the moon, we are seeing light that left the lunar surface just over 1 second ago, 1.3 seconds to be precise. It is a distance of about 384,000 kilometers. In the time it takes to take a single deep breath, light can make that journey. It is a light second. This is a manageable unit. We can feel a second. We can understand it. It is the duration of a heartbeat. It is the time it takes to blink. When the astronauts on the moon spoke to Mission Control in Houston, there was a pause. They would say something, and their voice, carried by radio waves which travel at the speed of light, would take just over a second to reach Earth. Mission Control would hear it and answer immediately, but their answer would take another second to travel back to the moon. The result was a conversation filled with small, unavoidable gaps, a rhythm of waiting. Silence, voice, silence, answer. That silence was not a technical failure. It was the physical manifestation of distance. It was the universe gently reminding us that even close neighbors are not in the same room. Now let us turn our attention inward toward the center of our system, the sun. It dominates our sky, burning with a ferocity that sustains all life on our planet. It looks like it is right there. We feel its heat on our faces the moment we step outside. But that heat is an illusion of immediacy. The sun is 150 million kilometers away. It is a distance so vast that a commercial jet flying without stopping would take nearly 20 years to reach it.
7. Light, however, makes the journey in 8 minutes and 20 seconds. This is a light minute. It is a scale that fits into a human routine. 8 minutes is the time it takes to boil a kettle and make a cup of tea. It is the time it takes to listen to 2 slow songs. It is a short walk around the block. In that brief span of mundane time, light has crossed the cold, dark void between the star and the planet. It has raced past the orbit of Mercury, past the thick clouds of Venus, and arrived at our atmosphere. There is a strange and beautiful thought that comes with this delay. When you watch the sunset, when you see that great orange sphere touching the horizon, dipping below the edge of the world, you are watching something that has already happened. The sun has already set. Physically, geometrically, it is already below the horizon. But the light carrying the image of the sun is still streaming toward you, 8 minutes behind reality. You are watching a ghost. You are watching a memory of the sun. The universe is playing a trick on your eyes, preserving the moment for just a little longer than it actually existed. As we turn our backs on the sun and look outward into the deeper dark of the outer solar system, the light minutes begin to stack up. We move past Mars, the red planet. Depending on where Earth and Mars are in their orbits around the sun, the distance between them changes. Sometimes they are close, sometimes they are on opposite sides of the star. The time it takes for light to travel to Mars varies from about 3 minutes to nearly 22 minutes. Think of the rovers that crawl across the surface of Mars right now, robot explorers dusting the red soil. When engineers on Earth send a command to tell a rover to turn left or to take a picture, they press a button, but nothing happens. The signal leaves Earth, flashing out into the void at the speed of light. It travels for 10, maybe 15 minutes. It crosses millions of kilometers of nothingness. Finally, it arrives at Mars. The rover receives the command and turns left. It sends a signal back saying, "I have turned." That signal takes another 15 minutes to return to Earth. For the engineers sitting in their chairs, a full half hour has passed since they pressed the button. They have to wait. They have to trust. They have to accept that they are not driving the rover in real time. They are guiding it through a delay. They are interacting with the past. This is the lesson of the solar system. The further you go, the deeper into the past you must reach.
Beyond Mars, the distances expand dramatically. We reach the realm of the gas giants. Jupiter, the king of planets, a swirling ball of storms and clouds so large that it could swallow 1,000 Earths.
It sits far out in the cold. Light from the sun takes roughly 43 minutes to reach Jupiter. 43 minutes, that is a lunch break. That is a television episode. It is a significant chunk of an hour. If someone were floating in the clouds of Jupiter, looking back at Earth with a telescope, they would not see us as we are now. They would see us as we were 43 minutes ago. They would see us doing things we have already finished doing. Then comes Saturn with its magnificent icy rings. Saturn is nearly twice as far from the Sun as Jupiter. The light takes about an hour and 20 minutes to get there. An hour and 20 minutes of silence. An hour and 20 minutes of moving through the dark with no landmarks, no air, no sound. Just the steady, unwavering progress of photons flying away from the Sun. And then the ice giants, Uranus and Neptune. These worlds are so distant that they are barely visible to the naked eye, faint points of light lost among the stars. Sunlight takes nearly 2 hours and 40 minutes to reach Uranus. It takes over 4 hours to reach Neptune. 4 hours. Imagine standing in the sunlight at noon. That same light clock in the afternoon. It is a journey that spans half a workday. By the time we reach Pluto and the scattered icy rocks of the Kuiper Belt, we are 5.5 hours to arrive. A round trip takes 11 hours. You could send a message in the morning, go about your entire day, eat dinner, and get ready for bed before the reply returned. This is the scale of our own neighborhood. It is measured in hours. It is vast, yes. To a human being, it is inconceivably large. But to the universe, it is nothing. It is a speck. It is a grain of dust. Because even at Pluto, even at the edge of the darkness where the sun's influence begins to fade, we have not yet reached, haven't even come close. A light year is not 5 hours. It is not a day. It is not a week. It is a year. 8,760 hours. To reach 1 light year, you would have to travel the distance from the Sun to Pluto roughly 1,600 times. You would have to stack 1,600 solar systems end to end just to span the distance that light travels in 1 year. And remember, the nearest star is over 4 light years away. This is where the brain begins to stumble. We feel like we have traveled a long way just to get to Pluto. We have crossed billions of kilometers. We have passed giant planets and asteroid belts. We have spent hours moving at the speed of light, and yet we have barely left the driveway. We are still standing on the doormat of the cosmos. The distance between the edge of our solar system and the very next star is a void so deep, so wide, and so empty that it makes the distance between the planets look like a crack.
In that void, there are no planets to mark the way. There are no planets to mark the way. There is only the drift by Earth standards, and yet in light years, they have traveled less than 1 day of light time. They have been flying for nearly half lifetime. They have been flying for nearly half a century, and they have not even come 24 hours directly toward the nearest star, which it isn't, but if it were, it would take over 70,000 years to get there. 70,000 years. That is the difference between chemical rockets and the speed of light. That is the difference between human movement and cosmic scale. It is a reminder that we are slow and the universe is big. But there is a comfort in this slowness. There is a peace in knowing that we cannot rush. We cannot force the universe to be smaller than it is. We can only watch it to be smaller than it is. We can only watch it. We can only listen to it. The solar system, with its light minutes and light hours,